So I had this problem, Mandy,
Oh,
and the
do
problem
tell.
was I talked a little bit about on the show yesterday. I had this problem, and that is I was in China. I was on this live stream for 4 hours, and I was being painted. My portrait was being painted by a top Chinese master,
Excellent.
and he came over and he handed me a block of watercolor paper and some watercolors, and he said, "You need to paint a portrait." And I'm like, "Oh no, I don't do this. I mean, I do it for fun, but I don't do this on live streams, and I don't do it in demos." And I'm like, "What if I don't get a likeness?"
Oh,
Likeness is everything. It's everything. And I'm struggling with it. And I know today you're going to help us with that. So help me understand what you're going to do today.
would be delighted to help you. So, my students also, they really struggle with portraiture. And I have found that what my students think is making their portraits look off is not actually the real reason their portraits look off. So today I thought I'd cover 3 of the main reasons that a likeness is elusive in a portrait, and how you as an artist can make sure that you are achieving a great likeness every time in your paintings.
Oh man, that's huge. This is going to be huge. Let's get this show officially started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhoads. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhoads.
We are very honored today to have Mandy Theis. Mandy she's the teacher's teacher. She's the one who has taught art teachers all over the world, art teachers who are influencing students in high schools and colleges and everywhere else. She's the one who teaches them. She's a big deal, and she's going to teach you today. And I don't know if we have any of her work to show you, but look at that. Now, if you think she's getting likeness, she's really nailing it. That's incredible academic quality work. And so you want to be able to do that. This is the woman who's going to teach you today. Remember, she's the one who teaches the teachers. So we're going to get right to it. Mandy, let's talk about getting a likeness. Let's show us how to do it.
Okay, well, thank you again for that delightful introduction. As Eric said, my name is Mandy Theis. I'm a licensed art teacher, and I work with art teachers all over the world. I do professional development with them and non-art teachers as well. But, one of my main goals is that, a lot of public school art teachers have not had access to atelier training in their own education. And so through professional development experiences, through a master's degree program at the Florence Academy of Art that I helped develop, we're trying to get this knowledge into the hands of art teachers so that they can teach all of those students out there. And of course, I'm delighted to get this information into all of your hands today. So please make sure to say hello in the chat. I always love seeing and hearing from everybody. And a big thank you to Eric for having me today. All right, I have a few portraits on my easel that I'm just going to cycle through and talk about a few common mistakes that people make when painting portraiture, because the mistakes are different depending on what process we are in the portrait. And so I have 3 portraits in 3 different stages of existence right now. These are master copies. I like to teach with master copies. In particular in a live stream situation, because we're going 2D to 2D, and I try to give you the best views that I can. Okay, so when you're painting a portrait, the number one mistake that people make is they think, oh, I am painting Mandy. I need to get my blue paint because she has blue eyes, and she has, I think 16 eyelashes. So I'm going to put 16 eyelashes down, right? But that's actually not at all how humans recognize other humans. And, there's a great book on forensic art out there by Karen. Oh gosh, I should have double checked. Karen something, and it's called Forensic Art. And she blew my mind with what she knows about how we get a likeness, because for her job, she's a forensic artist. She's taking people's skulls and she's like recreating the features on them, that they find missing people, or, when people say, oh, this person committed a crime, they look like this. She's the one doing those pictures. So how is she taking that information that people are telling her and getting a likeness that is actually capturing criminals? And the most important—
All right, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to just tell you something. It's Karen Taylor.
Karen Taylor, thank you so much. You know Karen.
And Karen has been to my home studio and painted with us because she lives in Austin, where I live part of the year. And one of the people who she trained, a forensic artist, is in my painting group. So small world, isn't it?
I read her book in college when I was first trying to find atelier training, and she had such an impact on my understanding of likeness, because I love that you know her. Of course you know her. Eric knows everybody. But you know, the one most important thing that I learned from her is that you do not get a likeness from drawing the right number of eyelashes or getting the right eye color. Likeness comes from the relationship of the features to each other, right? So some people have eyes that are set far apart. Some people have eyes that are close together. Some people have a nose that's really far away from their eyes. Some people have a nose that's close to their eye. You know, a thing that I just hate, I hate this, Eric, so much, are these formula faces that you see floating around. Let me know in the chat if you've ever heard, oh, the mouth is supposed to go through the center of the eye, you know, and the nose is supposed to be one eye wide, or all these things. It's all lies, right? The idea behind that is to have an idealized face in your head, to look at a real human in front of you and see how it differs. But I mean, look at Julia Roberts' mouth. I mean, her mouth is like this wide, right? Like it comes down like the side corners of her eyes. You know, some people have really narrow mouths. Some people have really long nose. There's no like set distance of a nose. People have different lengths of noses, okay? So, you know, these formulas are not helpful. What is helpful is understanding that you're going to get a likeness by understanding the relationship of the eyes to the nose to the mouth and the proportions of those things to each other. All right, so hopefully we're all with me. Now, the reason this is true has to do with the phenomenon that happens. Like, let's say you're out in a field and your friend is like hundreds of meters away from you, and you recognize that friend. You're like, oh my gosh, that's definitely my friend Eric, my dear friend Eric, right? What's he doing in New York? I see him right there. I didn't see his eye color. I didn't see how many teeth he had or how white or not white they may be, right? But what you're seeing is the sun is usually shining from above, and you have eye sockets here, right in your skull, and your brow ridge is casting a shadow on your eye. Your nose is casting a shadow, and your lips are casting shadows. Now the lips are different because some people have lips that will cast a shadow under, and some people have more protruding lips where the shadow is a little bit different. But generally speaking, I can talk. Sorry. I can talk about my lips. I need a sip of coffee. Give me a second.
You need to be rescued. All right. Well, I'll come on camera and rescue you right now, just so you have a chance to get a drink of water. So Mandy Theis is here, and she's teaching us about that. And it's, you know, it's really true. You know, you can see somebody from way distant. You get these. I have deep eye sockets, and so I've got light on me right now, but you know, you can see that, and it makes a big difference. You know, somebody does have a longer nose or a wider nose, and so those formulas are really good to learn, I think, but you want to learn how to do it properly. You know, those things are approximations for idealized faces, but I don't know about you, but I don't have an idealized face for sure. Okay.
I think you're being modest. Thank you for my hero. Thank you, Eric, for saving me. Okay, so my lips, I'll talk to my lips. Now, lips are the most different about how they cast shadows, because some people have lower lips that protrude beyond the top lip. Some people have top lips that are kind of turned out, especially with the whole filler craze right now. You're seeing a lot of, you know, flipped out top lips. But my lip, if you look kind of at the side, it indents here. So my upper lip is actually in shadow, and then my lower lip is casting a shadow underneath. Okay, so the shadow pattern is what creates a likeness. And so if I were to like put my eyes here, if I start making my eyes look like they're farther apart, you lose the likeness. If I put them too close together, I'm a different person, right? So I only look like me when my eyes are this distance in relationship to the bottom of my nose and to the shadow on my mouth. If I were to move the mouth shadow down, all of a sudden, you know, I have too much space between my nose and my bottom lip, and it's no longer me. I'm no longer that likeness. So the number one thing to think about when you're trying to create a likeness in a portrait is the relationship of the features to each other and the proportion of the features to each other. If you make the eyes and the nose the right distance from, the eyes and the mouth the right distance from each other, but you make the nose really big, all of a sudden you're changing the space between the nose and the eyes and the nose and the mouth, right? So the proportions have to be right. And the relationship, it is all about relationships. If you are like, oh, it almost looks like this person, but not quite, check what we call the triangle of the face. So if you go from the center of the eyes to the center of the mouth, it creates a triangle, right? Check that triangle. If that triangle is too wide, that's the problem with your likeness. If it's too narrow, it's the problem with your likeness. So if don't take away anything else today, the relationship of the features. Now, how does that relate to when we're actually painting, right? So, I have some examples here that I wanted to go through today, and we're going to do a little bit of painting as well. But I want to show you this idea of you can have very minimal information. So this is a master copy I'm in the process of working on the 𝗕𝗶𝗁𝗲 Arts channel, the YouTube channel. But there's no color in the eyes. I've just placed the shadows, right? I've placed the shadows of the eyes, the bottom of the nose, and the upper lip is casting a very skinny shadow here and the shadow under here, right? But we have a likeness because the relationship of these shadows is the same as the relationship of these shadows over here. Now, I also added the facial hair, not because the facial hair is a shadow, but because it's creating a lot of contrast on the face. So if you're dealing with contrast on the face and you have dark facial hair, that can be something that you consider in your likeness as well. Obviously, we recognize a lot of people by the facial hair because the facial hair itself is either very dark or can also cast a shadow. So even a blonde mustache will cast a deeper shadow than a lip cast. So it does change the shadows on the face when you have I was about to say barbers, like facial hair. I think Eric was telling me he just got back from China. He's a little jet lagged, and I feel like I'm like channeling your jet lag or something. I'm having a hard time with okay, so this is an example of like the shadows being in the right relationship. So what I thought we could do is I'm going to put up this little 𝗕𝗀𝗶𝗁𝗲 painting. It's a really simple face. It's nice and big, so hopefully you can see it clearly. And I'm going to show you what happens when we get the relationships in the features in the right relationship, and what happens when they're in the wrong place, and how we can correct them when they are in the wrong place.
I think that's really a great example, Mandy, because if you pull that up just a second and put it over there, when you're painting a portrait that's in a lot of light and you don't get a lot of shadow, it's even more difficult because you can use shadows as a roadmap, and there's not a lot of shadow on that face. It's all very subtle.
Absolutely. And so that's in part why I picked this example, because the shadows are still here. There is still a shadow under the nose, but it's much more subtle. There is a shadow in the eye socket. If you squint, it's just a very light value shadow. And we are getting a really light shadow here, but these shadows are mostly being created by shifting the skin tone from a warm color to a cool color. And they're similar in value. It's not really using value to show a dark shadow the same way of the example underneath, right? Here we have more defined, darker shadows. Here they're shifting from a purple to an orange to represent the shadow. So, the shadow is still in existence, but exactly what Eric is saying, when you have a more washed out face, you're going to have that shadow shown with warms and cools instead of, the heavy shadow that we saw in the Velázquez example.
So there's a question from Claire Harris who says, how do you get the proportions for the eyes, the nose, and the mouth right?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. We're going to study that right now. All right. So how do we get this relationship? All right. So we have the relationship between the eyes, nose, and mouth. And I keep harping on this, right? This is the most important thing. But there is one thing that's even more important than that. And that is the relationship of these features within the head shape of a whole. Do you see how big the head shape is in relationship, especially on a child, because children have more compressed features until their skull finishes growing? So we need these in the right relationship to each other, and to the skull as a whole. I cannot tell you how many times, Eric, I see students, I'm going to even do it on the slide over here. I'll see students get a beautiful relationship. They'll have two eyes, a nose, and a mouth, and pretty good relationship to each other. You know, this is approximately the relationship of these eyes, nose, and mouth here. But then they'll like do this, right? They forget about the skull. So what we need to do is make sure that we're seeing all the proportions. This goes back to proportion, that, you know, this side of the face is actually closer here. We have a nice big skull up here. And this, and, you know, the chin is actually quite small as it comes up as well, right? So we need, if we want to make a believable portrait, we need to make sure that the relationships are the right relationship to each other. Sorry, the features are the right relationship to each other, and that the features are the right relationship into the skull as a whole. All right. Is everybody with me so far? Let me know.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that's so small. People in the comments are saying it's really hard for them to see.
Okay, let's do it way bigger. I was gonna make that my bad example, but let's start with the skull here. All right, so I'm just gonna really make this big and dark, and I'm just dealing with black here because I'm just dealing with shadow values and shapes right now to kind of make the point of.
So when you start a portrait, are you starting with this this outline?
Yep. So I'll start with the biggest shape of the head. And then the very next thing, some people wait to put the eyes in and the features in at the very end, right? Because they're afraid of them, right? They like dance around them. They're like, you know, really afraid of it. You know, I'm working in oils today. And, you know, this is some of the darkest area of this whole painting. The hair is dark, but as far as the face goes, this is the highest point of contrast. Like, don't put it off to the very end. That just makes you anxious, right? Like, throw them in. But where do we throw them in? So we have an angle on the face, right? So some of you may see people do kind of this angle thing, right? Like showing the top of the eye socket, the nose, the nose and the mouth, right? And this is fine as long as you make these marks in the right relationship with each other. Do you see how these marks are a different person than these marks? Like, look how much distance I have from the lips to the chin. And I have way too much space between the nose and the mouth. And look how high up my eyebrow is in the skull compared to how low it is. Look at this distance from the top of the skull to the top of the eyebrows. That's so much space. And do I have that here? No, I do not. So the problem with these angles is that they're only helpful to you to align the features, but you have to be very, very careful about their distance from each other, right? And their relationship within the skull as a whole. So I'm going to go ahead.
You use a measuring tool. How do you measure it? If you're painting from life, what do you do?
Okay, so what I like to do is, let me grab some extra paintbrushes to use as sticks. What I like to do is think about the triangle of the face, right? So if I connect either the eyebrows or the eyes, it's up to you, connect to this corner of the mouth. Let's see if I can do this. Like this. Right. This is the triangle of the face. This is what I'm looking for. And it's a lot easier to find this triangle and where it's floating within the big head shape than it is to think about them as two eyes, nose, mouth, whatever. So as I make the corrections, we know that this is the wrong face. This looks like a grown man here, right? These are the proportions of, you know, certainly an adult face. But if I know, in fact, I wonder if I can just paint on this. I'm going to just lightly paint right on my little copy here. Okay, I'm looking for this little triangle in the hole. So how am I going to find that, right? So I'm looking for something that looks much lower on the face, something like this. So I'm going to pull back my wrong, and even that's a little wide. So I'm going to pull back my wrong marks just so we don't get lost in this demo. And we're going to really evaluate, okay, we have a small triangle floating in the face. Where do we go from there? So I'm just going to pull back. These marks that we don't need. just so we don't get confused by them. And now we have something much more likely to guide us to this. I feel like this triangle is still a little bit on the big side. We did say that this side was going to go a little lower. And, you know, I feel like this triangle is still a little bit high. You know, it's tempting to make an adult-sized triangle when you're painting a child, but children's features are much smaller in the shape of the skull than adults' features are.
So is this how you start a portrait? The very first thing you do is try to get your triangle in?
Yep. So I don't always draw my triangle. Like if I'm giving a demo, I draw my triangle because I want, you know, my students to understand what I'm doing. When I'm painting for just myself, I just see the triangle, right? So that's something that happens with experience, is that, you know, if I weren't giving a demo today, I would be seeing this even if I didn't directly paint it. But when I demo, of course, I want to make sure that everybody's seeing what I'm seeing.
So the triangle goes from the middle of the eye down to the edge of the nostrils, or the end of the nose, down to the middle of the mouth, typically?
Yes. So I say the center of the mouth to the pupils, although you have to be careful because pupils move back and forth, right? But in this case, because this is a master copy, I can use the pupils. It happens to reach the edge of the nostrils in this painting, but some people have nostrils that will go outside the triangle, some, you know, above or beyond. This is just kind of a placement triangle because, you know, if you see this triangle, you'll be able to see right away whether the nose extends beyond, is really narrow and doesn't reach. But the triangle will keep the relationship of the features to each other because, again, the relationship of the features is our most important thing. So what I would do next is place the pupils. Like sometimes people are afraid of doing this, but I feel like it's so important. Like don't leave the scariest thing for last, right? And, you know, Rembrandt was famous for actually drawing eyes like this, right? If you look at his drawings, you just see these like circle cartoony looking eyes, but they don't look cartoony when Rembrandt does it, right? But, you know, he just wanted to get them out of the way. And, you know, of course we have, you know, our mouth meeting approximately here, and we know our nose is somewhere in between. So I'm asking myself, you know, is my nose closer to my mouth or closer to my eyes? And I see that the nose is closer to my mouth than the eyes. And I'm also asking,
her head is tilting forward.
Absolutely. When you have a tilt, that's another thing to consider, because this triangle isn't equilateral when a head is turning away from you. So we know, for example, that things that are closer to you are going to be bigger and things that are further away from you are going to be smaller. So when I'm facing the camera this way, this side of my face in theory is the same size as this side of my face because it's on the same plane and the same distance from you, the viewer, and my camera in this case, right? But as soon as I start tilting my head, this eye is now closer, therefore it's bigger. This eye is further away, therefore it's smaller. The triangle starts looking different. Where did I put my sticks? The triangle on my face, from your guys' point of view, let's see if I can manage this. You know, is looking like this, right? But this side of the triangle is bigger because it's closer to you. This side of the triangle is skinnier because it's further away. I'm trying to do it both at the same time.
Yeah, add sound effect.
Draw on my face, right? Like, I'll just paint my face, right? So from your point of view, this is approximately, if I could just get them a little narrower.
You got the idea.
Yeah, we got the gist of things, right? So we want the relationship of the features to be the same. Now, I am not doing the sight size, right? My head is overall bigger than the head here, but it's fine as long as the shape of my skull and the proportion of my features are correct. Now, I can
sight size, just for everybody's benefit, is you're painting it exactly the same.
Right. So if I were to draw a line from the top of the head to the chin over here, if I were painting sight size, it would be exactly the same size. But, you know, that works sometimes, you know, but sometimes when you're in the studio, You can't paint site size. Maybe your model's really far away. If you paint site size, your head is going to be 2 inches tall, right? So there are occasions when site size is really helpful. For beginning students especially, I encourage you to work site size, especially if you have a friend or child or parent or whoever in your orbit, a neighbor that will sit for you. Set it up so that you can paint, like if you were painting me right now, set up your board so that you could go straight over and paint site size. But often it's not a choice because of your setup. When we're talking about getting a likeness in facial features, it's really just about the relationship of the features and the proportion of the skull. And that works the same way, whether you do it really little, like I did here, or really big, right? These are the same proportions, just at different sizes. It is more difficult actually to get a portrait likeness small, because if your eyes are even just a little bit too high or low, you lose the likeness, right? Whereas when you have a bigger head, you have a little bit more wiggle room visually to, nudge your features together. Okay, so this looks a little insane, right? But this is what in the atelier we call like structural drawing, or in the Italian Renaissance, they called it pedimenti, right? So like these underlying lines that help you think about organizing your visual information so that you can actually, get your solid likeness at the end. So I'm going to pull back and just clean up a little bit here. Let's see what happens if I get rid of this triangle and just have my features. What does that look like? And of course, do you see how we're starting to find the likeness in here, that we're mostly imagining the triangle? I lost my nose. We're mostly imagining the triangle, but that we, just by placing the features in the right relationship to each other, we start getting the likeness that we're after. Okay, so, we have the nose, and, the width of the nose matters. If I make this nose like super wide, right? Obviously, this is a huge cartoonish exaggeration, but we've lost the likeness, right? So we want to make sure that we understand that width is a part of our proportions as much as the location of our different features. So I'm going to replace the nose here, approximately this wide. The mouth needs to be a little wider. This is the shadow from the upper lip, right? There can be, especially on her, she has a little bit of a chubby face. So we're seeing a little bit of a shadow caused by the dimples on the edge of the face. Okay, so there's a question in the chat that I'm seeing about how would I measure the proportions if I was doing it site size. You could literally just measure the width between the eyes and check them over here. You could measure the width of the nose and make sure the width over here was exactly the same. So when you're doing site size, you can take literal measurements. If you want to know more about working site size, I have a great bark plate drawing class on my old YouTube channel called the 𝗕𝘀𝗶𝘁 Initiative, and it goes through site size like there's like 30 videos there. So if you're like really curious about how to really do site size, that's the class for that. Today is a little bit more focused on portraiture, so I want to keep our narrow focus on that. Okay. All right. So
the question is, how would I measure the proportions if I wasn't doing site size?
Oh, if you weren't doing site size, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Eric. I am just struggling today.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
If you're not doing, all right, so when you're doing site size, you're measuring. When you're not doing site size, you have to do what's called relational measuring. So you can do this, for example, if I want to know where this eye goes within the skull, you can take the entire width of the skull, pretend that this side is 0 and this side is 100. What number would you give this eye? Is it like halfway? Is it beyond halfway? Is it less than halfway? If this is 0 and this is 100, I would say that maybe this is like a 15, right? So then I come over here. Now my width is wider because it's a bigger head, but is this eye still hitting at about 15 from here to here? I would say yes. Yes, it is. So that's how you do relational measuring. You can do the same thing, height from top to bottom. Like if I want to know how high up my mouth is, here's the whole skull. The bottom is going to be 0. My finger up here is going to be 100. you know, here's halfway, here's 25, maybe the mouth is at like 12, right? So I can do the same thing here. Here's my whole height. Here's my halfway. Oops, sorry. Here's my halfway. Here's my 25. Oh, look, my mouth is at about 12, right? So that's how you do relational measuring. It's a slightly different skill to practice, but I really encourage you to give it a try. You know, even if you're drawing, a great way to practice relational measuring is if you take an apple. I love doing this with my students. Take an apple, right? And ask yourself, where does the stem come from out of the apple? The bottom of the apple is 0 and the top of the stem is 100. Where does the stem meet the apple, right? It's a great way to practice thinking about relational measuring. Okay, so we have an apple, we have a little face, we have a big face. Because her hair is so dark, it's creating the same amount of weight as a shadow. So sometimes it's helpful to kind of include that. You know, we have the shape of our head as a whole, but her face shape, do you see how her face shape is kind of coming like this? You know, maybe cutting off the ear. Her face shape, we want to make sure makes sense for the features that we put down as well. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that separation of the hair in. And again, I'm doing relational. How high up is the hair from her chin to here to the top of the head? It's slightly above halfway, right? So if this is the height of my head, here's my halfway, it's going to be slightly above halfway, approximately, maybe a little bit lower. You know, it's coming around here. And that was a little steep. Okay, so you know, these relationships, it's the relationships between the features and the relationship between the features and the skull that give us a likeness in our painting. You know, we have a different problem now. I told you I was going to talk about a few different problems that students have. And we are in a new problem right now because doesn't her head look huge, right?
Yes.
It looks huge. Like, why does it look so big? And it looks big for a few reasons. One, because we've been kind of messing around and erasing. We have some value showing here and we have no value up here. But a big part of it is that when we add a dark value, especially this hair mass, it pushes things back visually, right? So, you know, it can be confusing when it's white because it feels like it's so forward that makes it feel bigger. Look what happens when I start pushing it backwards. So we're going to fill in this hair mass just with a dark. You know, I'm just using black and white for today because we're talking about placement features and we're not really talking about painting skin tones today. But what we want is a good drawing, a good likeness. Now, throwing in a value just to throw in a value is called putting in a false value, right? Because eventually this is actually going to be a brownie color. It has a little bit of lightness in here. I'm only throwing it in to get clarity on my drawing. That's why we call it a false value. It's just a placeholder to throw some value down. And I'm just going to spread it out with my paper towel to make it go quick because I don't want to spend time filling in this big area in the demo today. So let's just fill it all in with our false value. All right. Do you see how all of a sudden the head is starting to feel more like the accurate shape and the accurate size? It does still feel like her chin's a little big. We haven't really dealt with this shape down here. Part of it is because we were measuring the height, but we didn't really deal with the tilt down here. So, you know, her chin is kind of coming up, you know, a little bit closer to her face than I originally had it. I'm looking at the relationship between this width versus the height. It looks like her hair is still a little high here. And again, this is about drawing. This is about setting our proportions. This is about getting a likeness and setting ourselves up to capture a good likeness. One thing I'm noticing is that this line I used to mark the chin is really wide and it's putting the chin kind of in the wrong place. All right. And then, of course, another mask that she has up here is this bow. I've been kind of ignoring it, but really, you know, in the original, it's a part of this mask that's up here.
Question from audience. Leah asked, do you use black paint initially or other?
I usually will use a kind of a brown paint more, but when I demo, I like to just use black because it's more easily visible. But it doesn't matter what you use necessarily, because you're building up passes over each other. If you're working on drawing, because we're really just focused on drawing, even though we're using oil paint today. We're trying.
You could do this with charcoal.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Honestly, like, it doesn't matter what you're meeting. You could do it in watercolor if somebody were to just hand it to you right before you go on a live stream. Okay, so I'm just trying to keep an eye on what we have. All right, so I wanted to talk about how when we have large areas of white, it can mess with our feeling of what's going on the facial features. And I wanted to show you another example, because the same thing is happening on this back side here, right? So when you do start coloring your features, do you see how wide this feels compared to this? But it's an illusion because you don't have the whole face covered yet, right? So when you get this color, it makes it feel brighter, and it's making it feel like it's taking up more space. And this down here is dull. It doesn't have the chroma that it has up here. And so it's feeling narrow. And a lot of times students, they'll get a couple passes of skin tone in, and then they'll start redrawing their face because it feels too narrow. But the real problem is just that it doesn't feel wide enough to them. But the real problem is that they only have part of the area covered. So the most dangerous times when students lose their likenesses are in the transitions, right? If they don't have the value set in here, it loses the likeness, right? This felt like crazy to us before we darkened it. If you start putting the color in, even if it's on the white part of the face, it's going to feel funky for a while. I tell my students that all paintings have an awkward teenager stage. Right. And, that happens, especially with the likeness, especially with portraiture, because unlike every other subject that we paint, we have very specific ideas of who the person is that we're painting, what they look like, and we can't stand it when it comes in and out of focus as we go through the stages of the paintings. So we just have to be very mindful that paintings are going to have some awkward stages sometimes. And that the problem might not be the drawing of our facial features. The problem might be the values that we're laying down. The problem might be that everything is right and it's just in that awkward teenager stage. So I think it's just as important to teach students when not to mess with their drawing as it is to teach them how to adjust their drawing.
Okay, what are you going to do next? Because we're going to take a quick break.
Oh, well, if you want to take a quick break, what we're going to do next is we're going to refine some of these features. Right now we have like some blobs representing the features, and we're going to learn how to refine them without losing our likeness. Okay,
terrific. Thank you. We have a free ebook for you guys. We would love it if you love portraiture or you want to be a realist. 10 steps to becoming a high-level figure or portrait artist. It's an ebook that I put together, and it's got a lot of great information. It's yours free. Just go to realismtoday.com/ebook. All right. Next up, marketing is so important. A lot of us are trying to figure out how do we make a living with our art. And I have an event coming up in November, and it's called Art Business Mastery Day. I set it in November this year. Last year it was in January. We had several thousand people attending online, because it's inexpensive. It's a full day, so probably 6 or more hours, and a lot of different guests who we will announce soon. But the goal is to help you plan your year. So if you feel like you're in this year and things aren't going as well as you hoped they would be, a lot of it is because you don't have a plan. So we put together, you get planning books and all this stuff that you can get with this. And so you want to sign up for November and do it now, because what you want to do is commit yourself to learning the essentials of marketing. And it's going to be different from last year. Just go to artbizmastery.com and get signed up for next year's event. All right. Terrific. Now let's get back to Mandy.
Okay, so because we've been moving things around on our face, we kind of have a situation where our little girl here looks like she's a chimney sweep, right? She has a lot of value where, I was wiping things away. So what I'm going to do is just even out the skin tone a little bit so that we aren't distracted by these white patches here. So I'm just going to kind of get it equally covered so that we're not fighting that problem. Again, this is a demo, so I do things a little bit different sometimes in demo than the way I would be painting at home. One of those things that might be different would be I'd go ahead and get my skin tone out, but I don't want to get distracted with painting skin tones. I want this lesson to be about capturing our likeness. So we're just going to even this out. And then I can pull back the lighter bits of the face, because what I essentially want to show, and I'm going to show it with value, even though this artist is showing it more by shifting from warms to cools. I'm going to pull out the lighter bits. You know what? I'm going to need some mineral spirits to do that. I'm just going to pull out some of the lighter bits so that we can...
This is a great thing to learn anyway, because a lot of people will cover the entire canvas with paint and then pull out the highlights.
Yeah.
Great. One of the great ways to learn to paint.
All right. I was going to do it. Oh, here we go. Yeah. We call it a wipeout when you kind of cover the whole canvas and then pull back. There's other terms for it as well. But, I opened a really old bottle just now that I haven't opened probably in 5 years. And boy, does that smell awful. I'm having a moment over here. But no, here's the new bottle. So we're just going to lighten it up a little bit, especially on the forehead. And I'm going to leave the areas a little darker around the eye socket. And of course, we have the shadow under the nose, and we have a little bit of value under the lips as well. Not doing it in a perfect manner, but just trying to even up so that we have some clean working area. I'm going to grab one more paper towel here. Like all things, we push and pull based on what our painting is telling us we need to do at different times. But one thing that you'll notice is that we're going to have to restate some of these things. That, the more we mess around with our painting, the more we are to lose our anchor ideas. And we want to make sure that we're really holding on to some of these anchor ideas here. So anchor ideas for us today, the only thing that we care about is maintaining our relationships. Now, I'm feeling like a little bit too much distance got between the eyes and the nose, and we don't have quite enough forehead here. I think the eyes are just a little bit high. I'm going to lower them slightly and pull back. Oops. I tell my students all the time, as long as you have a plan, you'll get where you need to go, right? If you have a plan and a process for painting, you'll get where you need to go. Some paintings, are a battle all the way through. Some will just, slip out of your brush and you'll think that you're a great artist. And then the next time you go painting, you have a different experience. Another thing I'm noticing is that my eye was migrating. This happens all the time. And actually, I just learned a new term for this that I love called wall eye. And that's a term I heard at 𝗬𝗵𝗶𝘀 when I was there for a show. But it's a tendency when you have the closest eye to make it, rotate out of the skull over here. So do you see how I just added a little bit on this side? Because this eye was migrating too far to the right. Our nose got a little wide as well. And here, and you see all of a sudden we're getting the more childlike feeling to the face back. These eyes are still a little bit high. This is the top of our brow ridge. It's still feeling a touch high. Now, are the eyes high, or is the mouth low, or the nose low? So I'm going back to my original triangle here, and it feels like my triangle got just a touch low. I'm going to lift the mouth just a little bit, not much. And all of a sudden that's feeling a little bit better here. We do see a little bit more of the right side of the nose than the left side of the nose because of the tilt of the head. Okay, so we want it to feel like her. We don't want a random person. We want her likeness. One thing that's kind of messing, we have this dark shadow under the chin, or like the jawline here in the original, and we don't have it here. So by adding just a little bit of this dark value, it's going to help define the face a little bit for us. And again, this is a false value because we're working in black and white today instead of the true color. And it looks like this ear got huge, right? So we're getting, you know, some of this false value in just to get more clarity on the face. This is actually another really important value on the left side of the face. It's really helping define the shape of her face on this side here. And then I need to, I'm just going to use value here. There's a color shift from the warm peaches to the white here, but I'm going to use a value shift to show that because we're kind of, even though we're working in paint, we're in drawing mindset here. But do you see how we're getting that childlike face, right? Each little thing that we do adds together and we adjust as we go. It looks like I pulled in this value a little far here. When I look at the distance here, we have her lips are a little wider, but this is a little harsh in here. I'm just going to soften this a touch. She has that nice kind of round face. It sticks up a little further here. Okay, I'm in drawing mode mindset right now, but I want to stay focused. We have some hair coming down here. I really want to stay focused on our likeness. So, you know, I promised you that we were going to refine features a little bit, and we kind of have these crazy eyes right now, right? Empty black holes. Yes, they are terrifying. I just saw the comments. Okay, so what are ways to do eyes, right? A lot of students, here's a mistake students will make is they will outline the eye. They will do, you know, like this kind of thing, right? And then we get kind of goth girl eyes, right? With this like, you know, kind of outlining. I'm gonna just bring you guys a little closer here so that you can really see, because we're really doing some feature work now. So I just did this kind of goth girl thing here, almond eyes, right? Like that's not really helping us. What is going to help us is getting the shape more accurate. All right, so I'm gonna just pull out the eye and we'll reset the eye here. Okay, so first we want to make sure that the pupil is in the right place. And now we want to actually refine the eye. In this case, the top of the eyelid is casting just a little bit of a shadow. I'm gonna try to get above. I have to look up for you guys to see it, but I have your eyelid has thickness to it, and it's casting a little bit of shadow, and that's what she's showing us here. So you can. This is one. There's different shorthands for different features. One shorthand that artists will use is to put in the pupil and then show just the top lid, the shadow under the top lid. I want to make sure that the value is the same, right? So you can do this and get fairly expressive eyes if you have your eye in the right place, you know, having just the shadow. Now this eye got a little bit, I'm like really tucked in here. This eye got a little bit big. I'm going to redo this eye. So we're going to use the ball.
Give and take, constantly, give and take.
Yes, yes. You know, especially with a portrait likeness. I love reading like Sargent, you know, we consider him a great portrait artist, but boy, did he rant in his journals about, oh, I have to paint another mug and how hard it is to get a likeness, you know. So it's not new struggles to get a likeness, but this is one concept of an eye where you paint the pupil and then just the shadow under the upper eyelid. And this is the conception that 𝗕𝘀𝗶𝘁𝗶 used on this particular eye. I'm just going to lighten it a little bit more around it because it's hard for you guys to see in the video. I just lost some of my light in my studio.
Well, and when you put that black in there and over the gray shows the white of the eye. It doesn't really need a whole lot of white. The temptation is to put too much white.
Always, always. You know, really, this isn't even lighter in value here, barely. It's a shift from a pink to a blue that's creating the quote unquote white of the eye. And rarely ever is there a true white in the white of the eye. It rarely works out that way. Okay, we still have a creepy eye on this side, so let's clean up her other creepy eye situation. I kind of messed up my original here. I don't see it as clearly as the other one, but let's at least get the eyeball the right size. But I am a big fan of throwing in the darks of the eyes. It's usually the highest point of contrast in a painting. Like, throw it in and adjust it, because if you save it for last, you're just terrified of it, and you'll then you fuss with it like the whole next session. And I find it less painful to put in just a marker of where the eyes go, because it's such an anchor on the face when you're trying to find the triangle of the face. All right, so I'm just trying to clean this up and give a little bit more clarity, especially for the video here. We also have some lightness kind of coming up. This is a side note. Hair is never a harsh line between the forehead. There's a transition period between the light and the dark, and showing a softer edge on the hair is a great way to get a more believable portrait. If you ever feel like you have cartoon hair, it's usually because you have a harsh edge.
I always have cartoon hair.
You just have great hair, Eric. That's a humble brag right there. All right. So, we're just kind of picking away. We're finding, we want to make sure that the angle of the features is there, but what's more important for the likeness is the relationship of the features to each other. Her lips got really big here.
It's amazing to demonstrate what you can do just with a paper towel.
Right. People tell me all the time, Eric, they're like, oh, I can't even draw a stick figure. I can't even use crayons. But, it's really about training your eye. If your eye is trained well, then you can, create these amazing things. And it doesn't really matter your material. In fact, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but I had a student once who was like, oh, I can't paint today. I don't have the exact right pigment of black. Like, they had lamp black instead of ivory black or something. And I'm like, you can use that black. It's going to be okay. And they're like, no, the reason my painting isn't going well is because I don't have the right thing. And I was like, painting and drawing, you can use any material if your eye is trained really well. Like, you could use a Crayola crayon. And they were like, prove it. And then I ended up doing a whole cast drawing with a Crayola crayon. It's on the YouTube channel if you want to check it out. But, the point is, if your eye's trained well, you can use rocks to create a beautiful likeness. Line up rocks outside. It doesn't matter the material. What matters is that you take the time to really understand, how the eye sees and how to interpret information. Sometimes students really resist learning how to draw. They just want to get to painting, and it's like painting is drawing.
Okay, since we're getting close to wrapping up here, I just want everybody to start thinking about looking up 𝗕𝗀𝗶𝗁𝗀, finding this painting, which is in the National Gallery, and try it. Try to do a copy. I think it'd be great. And just do a black and white copy. Don't try to do color. That's going to complicate everything. Just see if you can get your likeness down. Who's willing to try it? Go into the chat and tell us.
I love it. And, you can do this, pick 5 or 6 paintings and just try to, do these little scribble drawings. Just try to place the features, right? Like boom, 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 right? Just try to do these little scribble things of people you see in the coffee shop, wherever you go, if you just start thinking and isolating how the features relate to each other, you'll see it. And, practicing it will make it so much easier.
Awesome.
I can't believe that was over already. I'm like, no, I need more time, Eric. We didn't even put our eyebrows in, which have a slight value in here, but another day, another day.
Well, you know what you just did. I mean, sometimes we have a tendency to want to render everything, and sometimes just a matter of a little blob like you did on the eyebrow there. It says it's eyebrow. You don't have to render the whole thing.
It's true. You know, and we can often get distracted by the wrong things when we're drawing and painting, right? Like it doesn't matter if you rend out a beautiful eye if your eye is in the wrong place, right? You know, so, you know, if you really take the time to place your features first, you'll really come out ahead in your painting life.
Great. Mandy, thank you so much. This has been absolutely delightful. It's good to work with you. Thank you for all the things you do for us.
Aww.
And you're doing a terrific job. You're a great teacher. You should be teaching all the teachers in the world how to teach.
Well, I'm working on it, and I very much appreciate your support. I love being here. I love teaching. I love working with your wonderful audience. Hello to all of you. It's always delightful to be a guest on your show, Eric. So thank you for creating such a wonderful space for artists to learn.
Thank you, Mandy. You've really contributed a lot today, and for years. So we appreciate it. Okay. Bye. All right. Well, you know, to this point, I think that it's really important to understand that if you're watching this and you're going, I can't do that, you can do this. We believe, and we want to encourage everybody that, you know, you don't have to be able to do this naturally. It's not something that any of us had naturally. It's something that you learn the process. And when you watch this today, you realize how simplified the process really is. And just get out there and try it, and don't get discouraged. We believe anybody can learn to paint. If you watch just 5 shows, pick 5 of Mandy's, 5 of anybody's, you're going to learn enough to give you the confidence that says, you know what, I can learn to paint. I can do this, because our brains have told us that you have to have been born with it. And the reality is that very few, or maybe nobody's born with it. I mean, no, people just can't do that naturally. It's just like nobody's born to be a brain surgeon. I mean, they might be really good at it because they practiced a lot and they have really steady hands or something. But the reality is they had to learn how to do it. You have to learn how to do this. Anybody can do this. And that's why we continue this show, and we continue it for free. And we've been here for over 5 years, every weekday at 12 noon. We hope you'll subscribe. Just go to the YouTube channel and look up Art School Live and hit the subscribe there. Even though you might be watching on another channel, just go to YouTube and subscribe. That will help us. It'll help you, because you'll get notified when we come. It was really amazing to me how many people that I met in China who have been watching this program. I didn't think they had access in China, but they've all figured out how to do that. So that's nice. We got a worldwide audience, and we've had millions and millions and millions and millions of people watching. So thank you so much. It's really terrific. We have something coming up that I want to tell you about. It's called Gouache Live. Gouache is, if you don't know, gouache is a substance which is not watercolor, not oil paint, but it paints a little bit more like oil paint. But it's water-based, and as a result, you don't have any cleanup issues. A lot of people are moving to gouache or adding a gouache. So we've got a full day coming up teaching you how to do gouache. It's August 23rd. It's very inexpensive. And even if you don't think you're going to paint gouache, go anyway. It's a lot of fun. You're going to meet a lot of people. We've got some really great and incredible instructors teaching, and worldwide audience. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's August 23rd. It's a full day, and just put it on your calendar now, August 23rd. It's not too far away, right? It's just a little less than a month away. So I'll be hosting it, and we've got some great instructors. That's gouachelive.com. Thank you guys for tuning in today, and thank you again to Mandy Theis. I always get her name wrong, so I'm getting it right from now on. Just telling myself. And thank you for your comments. Make sure to share this, tell other people about it, so we can spread more art training to the world. Thanks.